My wedding day should have been the happiest moment of my life. The flowers were perfect, the music was soft and elegant, and Benjamin's eyes lit up when he saw me in my dress. But behind all that beauty lurked a truth that gnawed at me. My father had chosen my sister's party over walking me down the aisle. The moment I had dreamed about since I was a child, his hand holding mine, his steady presence guiding me forward, was shattered. What he didn't know was that someone else had stepped in, and the ripple of that choice would change everything between us. To understand how it came to this, I need to take you back to the very beginning, to the days when we looked like a picture-perfect family from the outside. We lived in Allentown, Pennsylvania, in a two-story home with a white picket fence and a neatly trimmed garden. Mom Eleanor planted tulips every spring, their colors bright against the pale siding of our house. Dad Richard often spent weekends mowing the lawn or helping neighbors fix broken fences, and people on our block admired us as if we belonged to some glossy magazine spread. But glossy covers hide smudges underneath, and ours were already there, faint but real. As a child, I adored my father. To me, he wasn't just a man, he was a giant, a hero. Standing tall, with salt and pepper hair that appeared early in his 30s, he carried himself with the calm confidence of someone who could solve any problem. He worked as a financial advisor, and every morning he left in crisp suits that made him look like he'd stepped out of a film. Before leaving, he would always sit at the kitchen table, sipping coffee and asking about my school projects while Mom packed my lunch. "Oh, Isabel, you have the brightest mind I've ever seen," he'd say, the corners of his eyes crinkling with warmth. "You're going to change the world someday." Those words were my treasure. I clung to them every time I doubted myself. If Dad believed in me, how could I fail? When I built a volcano for the science fair, he stayed up late showing me how to make the eruption more dramatic. When I earned straight A's, he celebrated with ice cream, lifting me high on his shoulders before we headed to the parlor. I felt chosen special, as though his pride was the air I breathed. Mom was softer, quieter, but no less important. With her warm brown eyes and patient voice, she brought balance to our home. She worked part-time as a nurse, yet somehow she was always present when we needed her. She'd sit with me at the kitchen table, patiently helping me untangle fractions or teaching me to fold cookie dough just right. Her chocolate chip cookies became neighborhood legend. Sometimes I'd watch her brush flour from her apron, humming softly, and I'd think this is what safety looks like. But safety is fragile, and mine was destined to break sooner than I could imagine. Then there was Vanessa. 3 years older, taller, stronger, louder. She excelled at sports while I buried myself in books and paints. Even before Mom got sick, she seemed to resent how Dad looked at me, how his praise found me so easily. If I came home with a glowing report card, Vanessa would roll her eyes and mutter, "Of course, Miss Perfect did it again." Mom tried to bridge the gap, telling Vanessa she was just as gifted in her own way, but my sister didn't believe it. To her, every compliment I received was a dagger aimed at her. Looking back, maybe the roots of her jealousy started there, tiny cracks spreading slowly. At 12, my world collapsed. Mom began complaining of fatigue, her glow dimming day by day. Tests, hospital visits, whispers between adults. Within 3 months, the diagnosis came stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Even now, I remember the sterile smell of antiseptic in the hospital corridors, the way my father's jaw clenched, as though he could hold the world together by sheer will. I remember sitting at Mom's bedside, holding her frail hand while pretending not to notice how her skin grew paler each day. 6 months later, she was gone. Our home, once filled with tulips and laughter, felt like an echo chamber. Empty chairs at dinner, empty smiles and photographs. The hole my mother left was more than absence. It was a gravitational pull that reshaped us all. Dad threw himself into work. He began coming home later, his suit still crisp, but his eyes hollow. Maybe it was his way of avoiding the silence that screamed through the house. Maybe he thought if he stayed busy enough, grief couldn't catch him. But in his absence, a vacuum opened and Vanessa filled it. At 15, she became something else, someone I hardly recognized. She took charge of the kitchen, burning dinners, but insisting we eat anyway. She scolded me when I asked about Dad's return time. "He's busy, Isabel. He doesn't have time for your whining. We need to be strong for him." Strong. That word became her weapon. She wielded it against me, turning strength into coldness, care into control. Dad seemed relieved by her efforts. He praised her for stepping up, thanked her for handling things, leaned into her new role as if she were the partner he had lost. And while their bond tightened, mine with him began to unravel. The irony was brutal. In the years that followed, Vanessa became his confidant, while I, the daughter who once basked in his pride, was cast into shadow. And though I tried to understand, though I told myself grief made us all strange, the truth lodged inside me. Like a splinter, I was losing him piece by piece. If I had known then how far my sister would go to cement her place, I might have fought harder, but I was only 12, a child holding on to fading warmth. I didn't see that she was already laying the foundation for years of manipulation. And my father, blinded by grief and gratitude, didn't see it either. What none of us realized was that Mom's death was not the end of our family's tragedy. It was only the beginning of the war that would define us. When Mom died, the silence in our house was louder than any storm. At night, I would lie in bed and strain my ears for her voice, half expecting her to walk in with warm milk or whisper, "Everything's all right, baby." But the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator downstairs and the faint tick of the clock on my nightstand, marking seconds that felt heavier without her in them. Grief doesn't just arrive, it rearranges everything. For Dad, it meant burying himself in 12-hour workdays at the firm, coming home after I was already asleep. His ties loosened, his shoulders slumped, but he always carried an invisible armor of busyness. If he kept moving, maybe the grief wouldn't catch him. I clung to the memory of the man who once sat at breakfast with me, asking about science fairs and cheering for me with ice cream in hand. But those mornings were gone. For Vanessa, grief meant stepping into shoes she was never meant to fill. At 15, she began orchestrating meals, though most ended in overcooked pasta or half-burned chicken. She reminded me daily that Dad was too busy, too tired, too important to be bothered. "We're all hurting," she would say, spoon in hand like a scepter. "But Dad has real responsibilities. Don't add to his burden." Her words cut deep. Real responsibilities? As if my tears, my longing weren't real. As if I was selfish for wanting my father to notice I was falling apart. I tried to do what Mom would have wanted, stay strong, keep my head down, focus on school. But Vanessa wasn't content with balance. She didn't just want to survive grief. She wanted to control it. And control meant control over me. I remember one night sitting at the dining table with homework spread out, asking timidly, "Do you think Dad will make it home for dinner?" Vanessa slammed down her fork. "Isabel, stop asking. He's not going to rush home just because you're lonely. He has important clients to deal with. Honestly, grow up." Her voice, sharp and dismissive, echoed in the quiet house. I bit my lip so hard it bled, the metallic taste flooding my mouth. Loneliness hardened inside me, unspoken and unshared. Dad didn't notice. Or maybe he chose not to. Vanessa positioned herself as his partner, his savior. She bragged about cooking dinner, managing chores, even handling little errands for him. He rewarded her with gratitude smiles sometimes, even a proud squeeze of her shoulder, the same gestures I once received. And me, I faded further into the background. But jealousy doesn't just sit still, it festers. Even when Mom was alive, Vanessa resented me. Now, without Mom's steadying hand, that resentment became something sharper, more dangerous. She began twisting stories. If I bought supplies for a school project, she'd side a Dad. Isabel wasted $60 on paints. She doesn't think about money the way I do. When I begged Dad to come to my band concert, she'd murmur, "Don't worry, Dad." Isabel said she doesn't need you there. She knows you're busy. And Dad believed her. Why wouldn't he? She was at home taking care of things. I was quiet, withdrawn, escaping into sketchbooks and novels. To him, her voice was louder, clearer. Mine was fading into whispers he barely heard. The first real fracture came in high school. I had been nominated for a prestigious art scholarship, something I worked toward for months. I told Dad over and over, circling the date on the calendar in red ink. He nodded distractedly each time, but I hoped that when the day came, he'd be there in the front row clapping as I walked on stage. The night before the ceremony, I overheard him on the phone with Vanessa. I was walking past his study when her voice, smug and smooth, carried through the door. "Isabel said she doesn't want to make a big deal tomorrow. She even mentioned that having you there might make her nervous. Maybe you should just send a card instead." I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. My throat burned with the urge to scream, "That's a lie," but my legs wouldn't move. The next day, I stood alone on the stage as my name was called, clutching the scholarship certificate. Around me, students beamed at their parents, their proud faces glowing. My seat beside me was empty. Later, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Congrats, Isabel. Proud of you. Had to attend a client dinner." But the truth leaked through days later when Dad's assistant let slip that Vanessa had rescheduled his calendar. that she had told the office I wasn't attending the ceremony at all. When I confronted Vanessa, my voice shook with anger. Why would you do that? Why lie to him? She didn't flinch. She shrugged, eyes cold. You always want the spotlight. It's pathetic. Dad needs me more than he needs your little dramas. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not just anger, but a deeper realization. My sister wasn't simply jealous. She was rewriting my life story, twisting every detail until my father couldn't see me for who I really was. By 18, I couldn't take it anymore. The house felt suffocating, toxic, poisoned by Vanessa's constant whispers and Dad's blind acceptance. I applied to universities as far from Allentown as I could. When the University of Pittsburgh offered me a partial scholarship, I didn't hesitate. I packed my bags without looking back, except for one last glance at the tulips Mom had planted by the porch. Their petals drooped in the late summer heat, and I thought bitterly she was the glue that held us together. Without her, we were fragments. On the bus ride to Pittsburgh, I stared out the window, the landscape blurring my chest, heavy with both grief and relief. I wasn't just leaving home, I was escaping a battlefield where my sister was winning a war I never wanted to fight. But even then, I couldn't shake one lingering thought someday all of Vanessa's lies would catch up to her. And when that day came, I swore I'd be strong enough to face the truth. College gave me distance, but it didn't erase the ache of being forgotten. When I called home during freshman year, Dad's voice was polite, almost scripted, as if he were talking to a distant acquaintance rather than his daughter. He always asked about grades, never about how I was feeling. Vanessa's voice, though, was everywhere, echoing in his words, shaping his version of me. By sophomore year, I realized she had built an entire alternate reality about who I was. According to her, I was rebellious, careless with money, ungrateful. Dad repeated these lines back to me without even noticing. Vanessa says you've been skipping classes for parties, he remarked once as though it were fact. I wanted to scream. I was spending weekends buried in books and sketching in the quiet corners of the library. My rebellion was pulling all-nighters, not nightclubs. But the more I tried to correct him, the less he listened. Vanessa's story was easier for him to believe, neat, convenient, requiring nothing from him except approval of her role as caretaker. The betrayal that cut deepest came the year of my art scholarship. That wound stayed raw. Dad's empty seat in the auditorium wasn't just absence, it was abandonment validated by Vanessa's lies. She hadn't only stolen his presence that night, she had stolen proof that I mattered to him. One evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I called Vanessa, my voice trembling with anger. Why are you doing this? Why do you keep twisting everything I say? Her laugh was low, mocking. Oh, Isabel, you still don't get it, do you? Dad doesn't need you. He has me. You're off chasing your little art projects, playing the victim. I'm the one here handling real life. Her words stung, but more than that, they terrified me, because a part of me believed her. I stopped trying to explain myself to Dad. What was the point? My voice had been replaced by hers. I retreated further into my studies, into art, into silence, and in silence, bitterness grew. Vanessa, meanwhile, thrived in her role. She cooked meals, though they were bland. She handled chores, though she often exaggerated her effort. She filled the house with her presence, commanding attention. Dad thanked her constantly, telling friends and neighbors Vanessa really stepped up after Eleanor passed. He looked at her with admiration, pride, the kind of pride I used to receive. It was like watching my reflection disappear from the family portrait, leaving only her. The final straw came one summer during a rare visit home. Dad was hosting a barbecue, neighbors and coworkers scattered across the backyard with paper plates and red cups. I had just finished sharing updates about my classes when Vanessa slid in beside him, her voice syrupy sweet. Isabel's being modest, she announced loudly. She's been struggling, actually. Almost lost her scholarship because she spends too much time with friends instead of studying. The crowd chuckled sympathetically, turning their eyes to me, as if I were some flighty girl who barely scraped by. My cheeks burned hot humiliation pricking at my skin. None of it was true. I was thriving academically, on track to graduate early. But the lie spread faster than truth could catch it. Later, when I confronted her, she smirked, brushing off my outrage. Relax, it was just a joke. But it wasn't a joke. It was war, silent, calculated, relentless. That night, lying awake in my childhood bedroom, I realized Vanessa wasn't content with Dad's approval. She wanted me erased. Every memory of me as Dad's favorite, every bond I had with him, she was dismantling it piece by piece, replacing it with her own version. And Dad, blinded by gratitude for her sacrifice, let it happen. I told myself that distance was my only weapon. I would survive by building a life so full and independent that Vanessa's lies couldn't touch me. But deep down, a question gnawed at me. How long could I run from a sister determined to rewrite my story? The bus ride back to Pittsburgh felt both liberating and hollow. I left behind the suffocating house, the tulips now overrun with weeds, Dad's distracted hugs, Vanessa's triumphant smirks. Yet the ache traveled with me heavy in my chest. I didn't know then that Vanessa's silent war was far from over. She hadn't yet played her boldest move. And one day she would strike at the very heart of my happiness, my wedding day. But for now, I threw myself into art exhibits, late-night study groups, and the small, precious friendships that reminded me I wasn't invisible. Somewhere between canvas and conversation, I began to heal. And somewhere in that healing, I was about to meet someone who would change everything. Leaving home for the University of Pittsburgh felt like exhaling after years of holding my breath. The bus pulled away from Allentown, and I stared out the window, watching the town shrink behind me, tulips and white fences blurring into memory. For the first time in years, I wasn't under Vanessa's shadow or Dad's distracted gaze. I was free, or at least I wanted to believe I was. At first, freedom was overwhelming. The campus was huge, buzzing, with thousands of students whose lives seemed brighter, easier. I carried my past like an invisible weight, smiling on the outside, while inside I was just a girl who had lost her mother, her father's trust, and her place in her own family. But then I met Benjamin. It started in an English literature class. He had missed a lecture due to the flu and asked to borrow my notes. I expected the usual transactional handoff, but instead he sat down beside me, scanning my neat handwriting with wide eyes. "Wow," he chuckled. "You write like a typewriter. Do you also color code?" I smirked. "Only when I want to impress people who ask to borrow my notes." That was our first conversation, sarcastic light, but with a spark that pulled me in. What should have been a 5-minute exchange turned into coffee, which turned into a 3-hour debate about poetry engineering and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Benjamin was different from anyone I had known. Where I was cautious, he was open. Where I doubted, he encouraged. He had this way of looking at me direct, unguarded, as if he saw me not the version Vanessa painted. Within a month, we were inseparable. We studied in the library, shared cheap takeout, went on long walks by the river. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt, and when I cried about Mom, he didn't try to fix it. He just held me. But it wasn't only Benjamin who changed my life, it was his family. The first time he brought me home for Thanksgiving, I felt like an intruder. His mother, Laura, opened the door with flour on her apron, cheeks flushed from cooking. "So you're Isabel," she said, pulling me into a hug before I could even respond. "Benjamin never shuts up about you. Come in, the stuffing's almost ready." His father, Henry, shook my hand firmly before telling a dry joke that made even Benjamin groan. His younger brother, Noah, teased me about stealing the favorite child title. Their home was warm, messy, alive with noise. Dinner was chaotic, with everyone talking over one another, laughter spilling into the cranberry sauce and mashed potatoes. It was everything my house hadn't been since Mom died. Laura noticed when my plate was empty, scooping more onto it without asking. Henry asked real questions about my classes, listening intently. Noah showed me his latest school project, proud, when I admired it. By the end of the night, Laura hugged me again, whispering, "You're welcome here anytime, sweetheart." That night, lying awake in Benjamin's childhood room, I felt something strange, safety. A kind of safety I hadn't felt since before cancer stole Mom from us. Meanwhile, my relationship with Dad remained shallow. Our monthly phone calls were stiff, full of weather updates and work schedules. He rarely asked about Benjamin. And when he did, it was with the detachment of a man asking about a coworker he might never meet. Vanessa, of course, kept her claws in him. I knew because whenever I visited for holidays, her presence was louder than mine, her laughter exaggerated, her stories polished. She'd lean across the table, smirking as she slipped in subtle digs. "Isabel's still doing that art stuff. Must be nice not to worry about real work." Dad would chuckle, not cruelly, but enough to let me know he didn't see through her. Each visit home was a reminder I didn't belong there anymore. So I built my belonging elsewhere. I threw myself into my studies, climbing higher in my program, earning respect from professors. Benjamin cheered me on at every step. His family became mine by choice, filling the cracks left by my own. By senior year, Benjamin and I were planning our futures together. After graduation, I landed a job at a marketing firm in Philadelphia, while he joined an engineering consultancy in the same city. We rented a small apartment, leaky pipes, creaky floors, but ours. Those early years in Philadelphia were hard but fulfilling. We scraped by on entry-level salaries, celebrated cheap pizza dinners like they were feasts, and leaned on each other when the world felt heavy. For the first time, I felt like I was living, not just surviving. Still, every now and then, late at night, I'd wonder about Dad. Did he ever think about me beyond Vanessa's version? Did he regret the moments he missed? The scholarship ceremony, the concerts, the everyday dinners where I sat waiting for him. Benjamin would sense my spiraling thoughts and pull me close. "He doesn't define you, Isabel," he'd whisper. "Look at what you've built. Look at us." And he was right. I had built something stronger, warmer, more real than the fragile house I grew up in. But the past has sharp edges. No matter how far I ran, the thought of my father's absence still cut me when I least expected it. What I didn't know was that fate would soon force me to face him again. And when it did, my sister's jealousy, always simmering in the background, would explode into something far more dangerous. Benjamin proposed on a crisp October evening, the kind where the air carries just enough chill to make you lean closer for warmth. He had planned the entire day as a subtle walk down memory lane. Breakfast at the tiny cafe where we used to cram for finals, a stroll through the art museum where I'd once dragged him through every exhibit, and dinner at the Italian restaurant where we'd celebrated my graduation. When the dessert arrived, a small velvet box sat beside my plate, my breath caught. Benjamin took my hands across the table, his smile trembling with nervousness. "Isabel, you've made the last 5 years the best of my life. Your creativity, your strength, your kindness, they amaze me every day. I want to spend forever learning from you, laughing with you, building a family with you. Will you marry me?" The ring was unique vintage, an oval sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. He told me later he chose it because it reminded him of me, vibrant, artistic, not like anyone else. Tears blurred my vision as I whispered yes, the restaurant erupting in applause as strangers toasted to our future. For one night I felt invincible, loved, chosen. But morning brought reality. Sharing the news with Benjamin's family was easy. Laura cried, hugging me tightly. Henry made a dry joke about finally getting another daughter. Even Noah, grown taller now, teased Benjamin about locking it down. Their joy was unrestrained warm. Calling my father was different. "Dad," I began, heart pounding. "Benjamin proposed last night. I said yes." The pause stretched too long, like static on the line. Finally, he said, "Well, congratulations. He seems like a good man. Have you set a date?" No excitement. No questions about the proposal. Just the flat tone of a man discussing a business deal. "Not yet," I murmured, fighting the sting. "We're thinking next summer." "Let me know when you decide," he replied. "I'll need to check my calendar." After I hung up, I sat in silence on the couch, blinking back tears. Benjamin found me there, worry etched across his face. "He'll come around," he said gently, though his voice carried doubt. Then came Vanessa's response. When I texted her a picture of the ring, she replied almost instantly, "OMG, congrats, little sis. So happy for you. That ring is so pretty." The excessive exclamation points felt like daggers. Her words were syrupy. Her tone exaggerated the insincerity dripping through every letter. I could picture her curled lip, her narrowed eyes. At 32, she had cycled through failed relationships, never finding someone willing to commit. My engagement was everything she didn't have, and she hated it. Still, Benjamin and I pressed forward with planning. After weeks of discussions, we chose June 15th as our date, 9 months away. The venue, a historic hotel in Philadelphia with a garden terrace for the ceremony, and a ballroom with sparkling chandeliers for the reception. I mailed save-the-date cards to everyone, including Dad. To my surprise, in our next phone call, he actually sounded almost pleased. "I've put it in my calendar," he said. Vanessa mentioned it too. I hesitated, then asked Dad, "Would you walk me down the aisle?" The silence was brief but heavy. Then his voice softened. "I'd be honored, Isabel." For the first time in years, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wedding could bridge the distance, mend what grief and manipulation had torn apart. Planning consumed me. Touring venues, tasting cakes, fitting gowns. Laura joined me for many appointments, her enthusiasm steadying me. At one dress fitting, she squeezed my hand as tears welled in her eyes. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become," she whispered. I swallowed the lump in my throat, imagining Mom beside me, her warm voice echoing Laura's. That ache, her absence, was a shadow that followed me through every joyful moment. Amid the whirlwind, one unexpected person emerged as a constant: Jack, Benjamin's uncle. Jack was in his early 60s, a retired English professor with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He had never married, never had children, but he doted on Benjamin and Noah as if they were his own. At family dinners, he always sought me out, asking about my projects, my art, my work in marketing. Unlike most relatives who asked polite questions and moved on, Jack listened, truly listened. "You have an incredible eye for what moves people," he said once, after I showed him a campaign I'd led for a nonprofit. "That's a rare gift." His encouragement felt like water in a desert. At another family gathering, he mentioned, "I've already reserved a hotel room for the wedding weekend. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Even bought a new suit." His enthusiasm was genuine, effortless. Unlike my father's clipped tones, unlike Vanessa's fake congratulations, Jack's support felt solid. But just as I allowed myself to believe things might be different this time, hints of trouble appeared. Vanessa began posting cryptic updates on social media, pictures of venues, captions about big plans in June, hints at catering and event decor. When I asked directly, she brushed me off with a casual, "Just work stuff, nothing for you to worry about." But worry is exactly what I did. A knot formed in my stomach, one that tightened with every vague post. She had received my save the date months ago. She knew June 15th was mine. And yet she was circling that date too, like a predator, biding her time. I told myself not to overthink. She wouldn't dare sabotage my wedding. Would she? But deep down, I already knew the answer. Because for Vanessa, my happiness was never just mine, it was a threat. And threats in her world had to be destroyed. 3 months before the wedding, the bomb finally dropped. It was a Sunday afternoon when Vanessa called, her voice sugary sweet in that way I'd learned to dread. "Isabel, I wanted to tell you personally before you saw it on social media," she began. "I'm hosting a career achievement party on June 15th. I've finally hit my sales target to become a broker, and the firm is throwing me a huge celebration at the country club. 11 in the morning, should be done by 4, so it works perfectly with your wedding, right?" The blood drained from my face. "Vanessa, that's my wedding day. You got the save the date card 8 months ago." She gave a fake little gasp. "Did I? It must have slipped my mind when planning with the firm. Anyway, it's just coincidence. Don't make it a big deal." "Not a big deal?" My voice cracked. "You've scheduled an event 2 hours away on the exact same day, knowing Dad has to choose between us." She laughed lightly. "Dad can attend both. He's so proud of me. He'll make it to your ceremony, too." But she knew what I knew. The timing made it impossible. Her party would end around 4. My ceremony started at 4. The drive alone was nearly 2 hours. No matter how you twisted it, Dad couldn't do both. After hanging up, my hands trembled as I dialed Dad's number. "Did you know Vanessa scheduled her event on June 15th? "Yes," he said casually. "It's unfortunate timing, but these things are hard to reschedule. It's a big achievement for her." My chest tightened. "But Dad, you promised to walk me down the aisle. You can't do both." He hesitated. "I'll make it work, Isabel. I'll attend the first part of Vanessa's event and then drive to your ceremony. There's no need to make this a bigger issue than it is." His words landed like stones in my stomach. No need to make this a bigger issue. As if my wedding, my one chance to have him show up for me, wasn't worth fighting for. In the weeks that followed, his excuses multiplied. Traffic might be heavy that weekend. Could you push the ceremony back an hour? Do you really need me for photos before the service? Every call chipped away at the fragile hope I'd built. I tried to stay strong. I threw myself into planning final dress fittings, flower arrangements, seating charts. Benjamin and his family surrounded me with love, but beneath the surface, dread gnawed at me. One Tuesday evening, 2 weeks before the wedding, the inevitable happened. My phone lit up with Dad's number. His tone was formal, almost rehearsed. "Isabel, I've been thinking about the logistics. I don't think I can make it to the ceremony on time. Vanessa's event is important for her career, and as her father, I need to be there. Maybe Benjamin's father could walk you down the aisle, or a friend's dad." I gripped the phone until my knuckles whitened. "So you're choosing not to walk me down the aisle at my wedding?" "It's not about choosing," he insisted. "It's about practicality. I can't be in 2 places at once, but I'll make it to the reception." The reception. As though missing the moment of a lifetime could be patched over with cake and small talk at 7 o'clock, I managed to whisper, "I see," before hanging up. Then I crumpled to the floor, sobs tearing through me. When Benjamin came home, he found me curled in the corner dress catalogs scattered around me like debris. "He's not coming," I choked out. "He chose her again. He chose her." Benjamin's arms wrapped around me, steady and fierce, his jaw-clenched fury radiating off him. I'm so sorry, Isabel. He doesn't deserve you. That night in bed, Benjamin whispered, "We can postpone the wedding. Pick another date. Give him no excuse." I stared at the ceiling, the shadows of the city lights flickering across it. No, that's what Vanessa wants. She wants me to move for her. I won't give her that satisfaction. But inside, I was breaking. The next day, Laura called. She heard the crack in my voice before I even spoke. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" I poured out everything: Vanessa's sabotage, Dad's betrayal, the ache of walking alone. Laura's voice trembled with compassion. "Oh, Isabel, I cannot believe your father would do this. But listen to me. This is your day. Do not let them steal it from you. If he chooses wrong, that's his burden to carry, not yours." Her words steadied me, but a question lingered, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. Who would walk me down the aisle? The father-daughter moment had been a dream I carried since childhood, even through all the hurt. The thought of walking alone felt like broadcasting my abandonment to every guest. Then, just days later, a new voice reached out, one that would change everything. "Jack." Benjamin's uncle called me, his tone gentle, almost hesitant. "Benjamin told me what happened. I hope you don't mind. Isabel family disappointments. They cut the deepest. I know." Something in his voice hinted at a wound of his own, an old scar hidden beneath kindness. And in that moment, though I didn't know it yet, the seeds of an unexpected salvation were being planted. Jack's call came on a gray Thursday afternoon, just as I was staring blankly at the seating chart, unable to decide who should sit where. The phone buzzed, and when I saw his name, I hesitated. We weren't especially close. He was Benjamin's uncle, after all. Why would he be calling me directly? "Isabel," he said when I answered, his voice steady and kind. "Benjamin told me what's been happening with your father. I wanted to check in." I nearly broke down right there, the gentleness in his tone unraveling the wall I'd built to keep from drowning. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean to drag your family into this." "You have nothing to apologize for," he replied. "Family disappointments. They cut deeper than any other wound. Believe me, I know." Something in the way he said it told me he wasn't speaking hypothetically. There was history in his voice, a weight I couldn't see, but could feel. "Did something like this happen to you?" I asked carefully. He was silent for a moment, then sighed. "My father refused to attend my college graduation. Said studying literature was a waste of time, that I should have gone into business. I learned early that some parents let pride matter more than love. It leaves scars." His words hit me like a mirror, reflecting my own pain. I'd been clinging to the idea that if I tried hard enough, Dad would eventually see me choose, me love me the way he used to. But maybe that was just a fantasy. Maybe some wounds weren't mine to fix. "Isabel," Jack said gently, "I just want you to remember family isn't only about blood. It's about who shows up for you when it matters." We hung up, but his words lingered. The next day, Benjamin's mother invited me to lunch at a small cafe. She hugged me tight the moment I arrived. "Sweetheart, Benjamin's worried about you. We all are." "I'm trying to be strong," I admitted, stirring my tea. But the thought of walking into the ceremony alone, it feels like admitting I'm unwanted. Laura's eyes softened with empathy. "Isabel, you're not alone. You have Benjamin. You have us. And there's something I think you should know about Jack." Curiosity pushed past my grief. "What about him?" She hesitated, then said, "When I married Henry, my father refused to walk me down the aisle. He thought I was making a mistake marrying again after my first marriage ended. He said it would embarrass him. I was devastated. And then Jack stepped in. He told me, 'Laura, you deserve someone who celebrates your happiness, not someone who judges it.' He walked me down the aisle that day." I stared at her, stunned. "Jack did that for you," she nodded. "He's never had children of his own, but he's shown up for us in ways that matter more than blood. That's who he is." Her story echoed in my chest like a bell. The image of Jack's calm, steady kindness in all our family gatherings suddenly aligned with this new knowledge. Could it really be that simple? That the person who would walk me into the next chapter of my life wasn't the man who gave me life, but the one who chose to show up. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with the engagement ring catching the moonlight, torn between grief and a strange flicker of hope. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I called Jack and asked if we could meet. We chose a bookstore cafe near his apartment. When I arrived, he was already there. A stack of books on the table, 2 cups of coffee waiting. "I took the liberty," he said with a gentle smile. "Vanilla latte, extra shot, right." My throat tightened. He had remembered something so small, and yet it meant so much. After some small talk, I gathered my courage. Jack. I know Benjamin told you my father isn't walking me down the aisle. He nodded gravely. Yes, I'm so sorry, Isabel. No one deserves that kind of disappointment. I took a shaky breath. Laura told me what you did for her, walking her down the aisle when her father wouldn't. I was wondering if you might consider doing the same for me. For a moment, Jack just stared, his eyes glistening. His lips parted, but no words came. Finally, he whispered, Isabel, I can't tell you what this means to me. Are you certain this is such an important moment? It should be with someone you feel close to. I am certain, I said firmly, tears spilling down my cheeks. You've shown me more genuine care in these few years than my father has in decades. I would be proud to have you walk me. Jack reached across the table, his hand steady as it clasped mine. Then I accept, with all my heart. It will be one of the greatest honors of my life. The crushing weight that had been suffocating me for weeks suddenly lifted. For the first time since the phone call with Dad, I could breathe. In that moment, I understood family isn't defined by DNA or promises broken. It's defined by who shows up when it matters most. Jack was showing up. And though I still grieved the father who chose my sister over me, I felt stronger knowing I wouldn't walk into my marriage alone. The path ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear on my wedding day. I would not just be a daughter abandoned. I would be a woman chosen by the family who saw me, loved me, and stood beside me. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and clear sunlight, streaming through the hotel curtains as if mocking the storm that had raged inside me for weeks. My bridesmaids bustled around the suite, their laughter filling the space as the hairstylist and makeup artist worked their magic. On the surface, everything sparkled with perfection. Lace gown, pressed bouquets waiting in crystal vases, champagne flutes clinking. And yet beneath it all, a hollow ache pulsed. My father wasn't here, not in the lobby, not waiting to walk me through the garden terrace, not even texting a sincere word of love. Instead, a short message had arrived hours earlier. Good luck today. Vanessa's event starts at 11. If it wraps early, I'll try to make the reception. Save me some cake. No, I'm proud of you. No, I love you. Just logistics. I handed the phone to Zoe, my bridesmaid, unable to read it twice. She shook her head in disbelief, hugging me. Unbelievable. He doesn't deserve you. But you know who does, the man waiting at the end of that aisle. She was right. At noon, a knock came at the suite door. Jack stepped inside in his tuxedo, holding a small gift box. His presence calmed me instantly. You look radiant, he said softly, his eyes warm. Benjamin is a fortunate man. Inside the box was a vintage lace handkerchief, embroidered with delicate blue flowers. It belonged to my mother, he explained. She carried it on her wedding day in 1930. Something old, something blue. Tears welled in my eyes. Jack, thank you. I'll carry it with me. As he turned to leave, he handed me one more small pouch. Laura asked me to give you this. She wanted it to be a surprise. Inside was a silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny paintbrush crossed with a pen. She remembered my childhood love for writing and painting. My heart clenched at the thought. These people I wasn't bound to by blood had chosen to honor me more than my own family ever had. By 3:30, my gown was laced. My veil fastened my bouquet in hand. Laura appeared at the door, her eyes shimmering. Isabel, you are stunning. Jack's waiting in the lobby. It's time. The terrace outside bloomed with roses and ivy garlands. Guests filled the white chairs. The string quartet playing softly as sunlight dappled through the leaves. Jack stood beside me in the anteroom, his arm ready. Are you ready? He asked. I nodded, though my throat was too tight to speak. When the doors opened and the first notes of Canon in D floated into the air, I stepped forward with Jack at my side. Every face turned toward me, but my eyes locked on Benjamin. He stood at the altar, his expression a mixture of awe and love, so pure it made my knees weak. In that moment, sadness about my father melted away, replaced by gratitude for the man who had chosen me. The ceremony itself was everything I'd dreamed. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves, promises of honesty, patience, and daily choice. When the officiant declared us husband and wife, the applause wrapped around us like a warm blanket. It was perfect, almost. The cocktail hour flowed into dinner toasts and laughter. Jack delivered a speech that drew tears. True family is not always born, but chosen. Isabel walking you today was an honor I will cherish forever. Guests rose in a standing ovation, their glasses raised high. But then, just as dessert was being served, my cousin Thomas slipped into the reception hall late and flustered. He hugged me tightly, his face troubled. I need to talk to you privately." We stepped aside into a quiet corner. "Isabel," he began, lowering his voice. "I went to Vanessa's event first thinking I could attend both, but it wasn't what she told everyone. It wasn't a corporate celebration. It wasn't even at the country club." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean?" "It was just a small gathering at her apartment. 15 people, maybe. A few coworkers, some friends from the gym. No promotion, no official recognition, nothing." She lied. The air left my lungs. Thomas hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "And that's not all. Look." On his screen were messages from Vanessa sent months earlier. In them, she openly admitted she had scheduled her party on your wedding day on purpose. She wanted Dad to choose her. And she'd been feeding him lies for months, telling him you didn't really want him there, that asking him to walk you was just obligation. I staggered back against the wall, my knees trembling. The truth I'd suspected for years was laid bare in black and white. Vanessa hadn't just been manipulative, she had orchestrated this betrayal down to the hour. "She destroyed everything," I whispered. Thomas looked guilty. "I should have realized sooner. I'm so sorry, Isabel." I hugged him, clinging to his honesty. "Thank you. At least now I know." But before I could process it fully, a commotion near the entrance rippled through the hall. Guests turned whispers, spreading like wildfire. My heart froze when I saw him, my father. Richard. He stood in the doorway, stiff in a hastily thrown-on suit, a small gift bag dangling from his hand. He scanned the room awkwardly before his eyes landed on me. "Congratulations," he said, stepping forward with a stiff hug. "Sorry I'm late. Vanessa's thing ran longer than expected." The word stabbed me. My wedding wasn't even important enough to cut short a fake party. Still, I forced a smile for the sake of the guests. "I'm glad you made it, for the last hour." If he noticed the venom in my tone, he didn't show it. Instead, he glanced around, commenting blandly, "Looks like it was a nice wedding." Was, as if he hadn't missed the most important moment of my life. And in that instant, anger and grief crashed inside me. Tonight would not end in silence. Not this time. The air in the ballroom grew heavy the moment my father walked in. Conversations faltered. Eyes flicked between him and me. Whispers spread like wildfire. He hugged me stiffly, handed me a gift bag, and spoke as if we were discussing the weather. "Sorry I'm late. Vanessa's thing ran longer than expected." That phrase, Vanessa's thing, sliced through me. My wedding reduced to an afterthought, a scheduling inconvenience. I clenched my jaw. "I'm glad you made it." For the last hour, I said my tone sharp enough to draw a few startled looks from nearby guests. If he noticed, he ignored it. Instead, he peered toward the dance floor, eyes narrowing. "So, who walked you down the aisle?" I straightened, ready for the blow. "Jack Harris, Benjamin's uncle." His brow furrowed, and his voice dripped with disdain. "That older gentleman in the tuxedo. You let a stranger take my place." Heat surged through me. "He's not a stranger. He's been more present in my life these last few years than you have." His face reddened, indignation flaring. "That's not fair, Isabel. I've always supported you." "Supported me." My voice rose, trembled, but I didn't stop. "You missed my scholarship ceremony because Vanessa told you I didn't want you there. You forgot my graduation dinner until Benjamin's parents reminded you. And today you skipped walking me down the aisle for Vanessa's fake party." His head snapped up. "Fake party? What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, Thomas stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "Uncle Richard, I was there. It wasn't a career event. Just a small get-together at Vanessa's apartment. No promotion, no colleagues, nothing like what she told you." My father blinked, confusion warring with disbelief. "That can't be true," she said. Thomas cut him off, pulling out his phone. "I have the texts. She admitted it. She planned it to force you to choose her over Isabel." I watched the color drain from my father's face as he scrolled, his hands trembling. His lips moved silently, as though trying to deny what his own eyes confirmed. "No, Vanessa wouldn't." "She would," I said quietly, tears threatening to spill. "She has. For years. And you believed her every time." Silence stretched, the kind that swallows everything around it. Then Jack approached, calm but firm. "Mr. Evans, I know this is painful, but Isabel deserved your presence today. She deserved your love. Instead, she got excuses." My father turned on him, his voice raw. "And what gives you the right to replace me?" Jack didn't flinch. "Being a father isn't about blood. It's about showing up when it matters. That's all I did." The words landed like a slap. My father's anger faltered, collapsing into something almost worse, shame. His shoulders sagged, his face drawn older than I'd ever seen him. I need to speak to Vanessa, he muttered, fumbling for his phone. He turned away, pacing toward the doors as he dialed. Through the glass, I could see him in the hallway, voice raised, his free hand, slicing the air in agitation. Then suddenly he stopped staring at the phone in disbelief. She hung up, he whispered, when he re-entered, his face ashen. She hung up on me. The room swirled with tension guests, pretending to chat their eyes, flicking nervously toward us. Benjamin appeared at my side, his arm steady around my waist. Do you want me to step in? He murmured. I shook my head. No, this is mine. My father looked at me, then his expression hollow. Isabel, I said firmly. Not here, not now. This is supposed to be my wedding day. I won't let you or Vanessa take that from me. Jack placed a hand on my shoulder, his voice gentle. She's right. Today belongs to Isabel and Benjamin. The rest can wait. My father's mouth opened, closed, then finally he nodded. I'll go. I need to sort this out. His eyes dropped, unable to meet mine. Without another word, he turned and walked out of the ballroom, leaving a vacuum in his wake. For a long moment, I stood frozen, my heart hammering. Then Benjamin squeezed my hand. He's gone. He can't touch this moment anymore. It's just us now. Tears blurred my vision, but I smiled through them. Just us. The sparkler send-off happened. Minutes later, our guests creating a tunnel of light as Benjamin and I dashed through, laughter and cheers, chasing us into the night. For the first time all day, I felt weightless. But the truth had been unleashed. My father knew Vanessa's lies, and though he had left in shame, I knew this was only the beginning of a reckoning. What I didn't realize was that the fallout wouldn't end with him or her. It would ripple through all of us, forcing choices we couldn't undo. The morning after our wedding, Benjamin and I boarded a plane to Greece. For 2 weeks, we wandered among ancient ruins, traced our fingers along marble columns older than memory, and ate seafood by the sea while the sun sank into the horizon. In those moments, far from Pennsylvania, I almost forgot the ache of my father's absence. Almost. When we returned to Philadelphia, reality greeted me in the form of 5 voicemails from my father. His voice, once so firm, now cracked and desperate. Isabel, I don't know if you're listening, but I need you to hear me. Another message, I confronted Vanessa. At first she denied it, but then she admitted it. She's been manipulating me for years, telling me lies about you, twisting everything. And finally, the one that broke me. I understand if you never forgive me. I missed your wedding. I missed so much more. But please, Isabel, give me a chance to make it right. I'm so sorry. There were no messages from Vanessa, just a curt email. I'm taking time away from family drama. Traveling for work. Don't contact me. I stared at the screen, torn between vindication and grief. For years, I'd told myself I was paranoid that maybe Vanessa wasn't as cruel as I thought. But now, proof. She had admitted it. Every lie, every sabotage, every stolen moment, it was real. And worse, my father had believed her. Benjamin sat beside me, his hand warm over mine. What are you thinking? I don't know, I whispered. Part of me wants to scream at him. Part of me wants to forgive him. And part of me just wants to move on without either of them. Weeks passed. I busied myself with thank you notes, client meetings, the steady rhythm of married life. Jack called every Sunday evening, his calm voice a balm. He never pushed, but his advice lingered. Forgiveness isn't excusing. It's freeing yourself from resentment. Whatever you decide, Isabel makes sure it brings you peace. One afternoon, I finally agreed to meet my father halfway between Philadelphia and Allentown. A small cafe, neutral ground. He was already there, looking older, smaller somehow. When he saw me, he stood eyes wet. Isabel, thank you for coming. We sat coffee cups, warming our hands, silence thick between us. Finally, he spoke. I failed you. I let Vanessa control the narrative because it was easier than facing my own grief. After your mother died, I was lost. She stepped in, and I let her. But I see now, she erased you from me, and I let it happen. The honesty in his voice shook me. I never wanted distance, Dad. I just couldn't survive her lies anymore. You believed her over me every time. He winced. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. His eyes searched mine, pleading. I don't expect forgiveness overnight, but I'd like to try again, Isabel. To know the woman you've become. To be your father again if you'll let me. I stared at him, my heart torn. Years of hurt didn't vanish in a single conversation. But maybe, just maybe, this could be a beginning. I'll think about it, I said softly. And I meant it. Over the next months, cautious steps turned into phone calls, then dinners. He met with Benjamin's parents, even Jack. To my surprise, Jack welcomed him with grace. One evening, I overheard my father saying to him, "Walking her down the aisle should have been my privilege. Thank you for honoring her when I failed." Jack's reply was simple but firm. Being there for her wasn't a duty, it was love, and you can still choose to be that now. Thanksgiving came, and for the first time my table was full. Benjamin's family, my father, cousin Thomas, friends all laughing, sharing stories. Vanessa was absent, of course. She sent a holiday card, nothing more. Her distance stung, but it also freed me. Not every bond can or should be mended. As we went around the table sharing gratitude, my father's voice cracked. I'm thankful for second chances, and for a daughter whose forgiveness humbles me. When it was Jack's turn, he raised his glass. I'm thankful for family, the kind you're born into, and the kind you choose. Isabel, you've reminded us all what that truly means. On our 1-year anniversary, Benjamin and I hosted a small dinner. Jack stood to toast his voice, thick with emotion. A year ago, I walked Isabel down the aisle because her father couldn't. What I didn't know was that it would lead to healing none of us expected. Isabel, you are proof that even broken families can find new ways to love. His words wrapped around me like a blessing. As I looked at Benjamin, at the family around our table, some by blood, some by choice, I finally understood. My father's absence had carved deep scars, but Jack's presence had filled them with something stronger. Family isn't who shares your DNA. Family is who shows up again and again, even when it's hard. Sometimes that's the father who raised you. Sometimes it's the uncle who chose you. Sometimes it's the partner who holds you through every storm. I was no longer the girl abandoned at the aisle. I was a woman surrounded by a tribe who chose me. And in choosing them back, I had found my true family. Have you ever had someone unexpected step in when family let you down? Or have you been that person for someone else? Share your story below. I'd love to hear it. Because sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we create through love, not the ones we're born into.